Cinema has always pushed boundaries, but sometimes filmmakers went so far that audiences weren't just shocked, they were disturbed, angry, and even terrified. These were not simply controversial movies. They were films accused of going too far morally, psychologically, and emotionally. Some were banned across countries, others sparked protests, and a few nearly destroyed the careers of the people who made them. Yet over time, these same films became infamous legends studied by critics and horror fans alike. Today, we're diving into 15 of the most disturbing films ever made and the dark stories behind them. And before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into cinema's hidden history. 1. Natural Born Killers, 1994. Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers wasn't just a violent movie. It was a chaotic experiment designed to overwhelm the viewer the same way media overwhelms society. Inspired partly by real criminal cases, the film followed Mickey and Mallory Knox as celebrity murderers created by sensationalist television culture. The editing style constantly shifts between film stocks, animation, sitcom parody, and hallucination-like visuals, intentionally making viewers uncomfortable rather than entertained. Critics accused the film of glorifying violence, while Stone insisted it was satire exposing America's obsession with crime fame. Several real-life crimes were later controversially linked to the movie, intensifying debates about media responsibility. The backlash became so intense that Stone publicly defended the film for years, arguing audiences misunderstood its message entirely. Behind the scenes, actors described filming as emotionally exhausting because scenes were intentionally shot to feel psychologically unstable. Today, the film is studied as both a media critique and a warning about how entertainment and violence can merge into spectacle. 2. Begotten, 1990. Begotten feels less like a movie and more like a forbidden ritual captured on damaged film stock. Director E. Elias Murridge created the film almost entirely without dialogue, presenting surreal imagery resembling ancient mythology or forgotten religious nightmares. The opening sequence alone shocked festival audiences with its symbolic depiction of creation and destruction. Shot in heavily manipulated black and white visuals, the film appears aged and decayed, making viewers feel as though they are watching something never meant to be seen publicly. Many screenings caused walkouts because audiences couldn't emotionally process what they were seeing. The production itself was extremely low budget, forcing actors to perform under harsh physical conditions for long takes. Critics later described the film as experimental horror that attacks subconscious fears rather than telling a traditional story. Over time, Begotten gained cult status among experimental cinema fans who interpret it as a meditation on death, rebirth, and humanity's spiritual decay. 3. Martyrs, 2008. The French horror film Martyrs shocked audiences not through jump scares, but through relentless emotional brutality. Director Pascal Laugier wanted to challenge the idea of violence as entertainment by forcing viewers into empathy with suffering characters. The story begins as revenge horror, but slowly transforms into philosophical terror exploring pain, transcendence, and human limits. Audiences expecting a conventional horror film were blindsided by its emotional intensity and bleak narrative direction. Many critics initially rejected the film as excessive, yet others praised it as one of the boldest horror statements ever made. Actors underwent emotionally draining performances that required deep psychological preparation. The film became a defining entry in a new French extremity movement, known for pushing realism to uncomfortable extremes. Years later, horror scholars continue debating whether Martyrs condemns violence or uses it as a spiritual metaphor, proving its lasting intellectual impact. 4. Last Tango in Paris, 1972. Bernardo Bertolucci's Last Tango in Paris became infamous not only for its explicit content, but for ethical controversies that emerged decades later. Starring Marlon Brando, the film explored grief, loneliness, and anonymous relationships with unprecedented rawness for its time. Upon release, Governments banned or censored the film worldwide, and court cases attempted to suppress its distribution. Years later, revelations about behind-the-scenes decisions sparked renewed debate about consent and artistic boundaries. Critics remain divided between viewing the film as an artistic masterpiece and condemning its production ethics. Brando himself later expressed discomfort with aspects of the film's emotional manipulation. Despite controversy, the movie influenced generations of filmmakers by proving cinema could explore intimacy in psychologically complex ways. Its legacy remains complicated, celebrated artistically, yet constantly questioned morally. 5. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange shocked audiences with its stylized violence and disturbing exploration of free will. Following delinquent Alex DeLarge, the film combined classical music with brutal imagery, creating an unsettling contrast that became instantly iconic. Critics feared the movie encouraged antisocial behavior after reports of copycat crimes surfaced in the UK. The backlash grew so intense that Kubrick himself withdrew the film from British distribution for decades. Beneath the controversy, the film examines whether removing a person's ability to choose evil also removes their humanity. Malcolm McDowell endured physically demanding filming conditions, including an infamous scene that caused real injury to his eyes. Over time, scholars recognized the film as philosophical science fiction rather than exploitation. Today, it is widely considered one of cinema's most daring examinations of morality and state control. 6. Hostel, Part 2, 2007. Eli Roth expanded the brutal world introduced in Hostel by shifting perspective toward the wealthy elites funding torture experiences. The sequel explored themes of commodified violence and moral corruption beneath luxury and privilege. Critics accused the film of representing torture porn, a term that defined an entire era of horror cinema. However, Roth argued the film was social commentary about consumer culture and desensitization. Several countries debated censorship due to graphic scenes that tested rating boundaries. The movie also surprised audiences by focusing heavily on psychological dread rather than non-stop violence. Behind the scenes, filmmakers emphasized realism in set design to heighten discomfort. Over time, the film gained re-evaluation as satire rather than simple shock entertainment. 7. Faces of Death, 1978. Marketed as a documentary, Faces of Death blurred reality and fiction so convincingly that audiences believed they were watching genuine death footage. The film combined real archival material with stage scenes, creating controversy about exploitation and ethics. Viewers often fainted or left theaters convinced the movie was illegal to watch. Authorities in multiple countries banned or restricted screenings due to public outrage. The film's marketing relied heavily on rumor and fear, turning it into underground legend through word of mouth. Later revelations confirmed many scenes were staged using practical effects. Despite criticism, the movie influenced found footage horror and shockumentary filmmaking. Its reputation remains tied to the uncomfortable question of why audiences are drawn to forbidden imagery. 8. Grotesque, 2009. The Japanese horror film Grotesque pushed boundaries so far that several countries refused classification entirely. Unlike traditional horror narratives, the film focuses almost exclusively on prolonged psychological and physical torment. Critics argued the absence of story made the violence feel disturbingly clinical. Supporters claimed it was an extreme exploration of fear and endurance rather than entertainment. The film became infamous after being banned in the United Kingdom for violating classification guidelines. Discussion surrounding the movie centered on whether art requires narrative justification for brutality. Horror fans remain divided, with some viewing it as experimental extremity and others rejecting it outright. Regardless of opinion, its notoriety ensured lasting underground fame. 9. Irreversible, 2002. Gaspar Noé's Irreversible gained notoriety for its reverse chronological storytelling and emotionally devastating realism. The film opens with chaos and gradually moves backward toward innocence, forcing viewers to experience consequences before causes. A single extended scene became one of the most debated moments in film history due to its unbroken realism. Many viewers walked out during festival screenings, unable to endure the emotional intensity. No intentionally used low-frequency sound design to create subconscious anxiety in audiences. Actors committed fully to raw performances that blurred acting and emotional exposure. Critics later acknowledged the film as a powerful statement about time, revenge, and irreversible choices. Its structure transforms violence into tragedy rather than spectacle. 10. The Devils, 1971. Ken Russell's The Devils combined religious history with political allegory, resulting in one of the most censored films ever produced by a major studio. The story of accused priest Urbain Grandier ignited outrage due to its provocative religious imagery. Religious organizations protested heavily, demanding bans and edits worldwide. Studios repeatedly altered versions of the film, meaning no definitive cut existed publicly for decades. Russell defended the film as criticism of institutional corruption rather than religion itself. Lavish production design contrasted sharply with disturbing themes of hysteria and power abuse. Over time, critics re-evaluated the film as bold historical satire. Today, it remains partially suppressed, adding to its mythic reputation. 11. I Spit on Your Grave, 1978. Originally released under a different title, this revenge film became infamous for its graphic portrayal of violence and retaliation. Critics condemned it as exploitative, while supporters argued it exposed brutality rather than glorified it. The film sparked heated debates about feminism, revenge narratives, and audience discomfort. Many theaters refused to screen it, forcing underground distribution methods. Lead actress Camille Keaton endured emotionally demanding scenes requiring careful coordination despite limited resources. Over time, interpretations shifted, with some scholars viewing it as empowerment cinema. Its controversial reputation ensured continued discussion across decades. The film remains one of horror's most polarizing works. 12. The Human Centipede 2, 2011. Tom Six deliberately made the sequel harsher after critics called the original unrealistic. Shot in grim black and white, the film abandoned dark humor for nihilistic horror. Several countries banned the movie outright due to extreme content concerns. The protagonist's disturbing psychology turned the film into commentary on obsession and media influence. Critics debated whether the sequel existed purely to provoke censorship reactions. The uncomfortable realism of the setting amplified audience unease significantly. Even horror fans found the experience difficult to endure. Despite outrage, the controversy guaranteed worldwide attention and cult notoriety. 13. A Serbian Film, 2010. Few films have generated as much global controversy as a Serbian film. Director Sredan Spasojevic described it as an allegory for exploitation and political trauma within Serbian society. Many countries banned the film immediately after festival screenings. Critics accused it of crossing moral boundaries beyond artistic justification. Supporters argued its shocking imagery symbolized societal abuse rather than literal storytelling. Actors later clarified strict professional conditions were maintained during filming. Debate around censorship versus artistic freedom intensified worldwide. The film remains one of the most discussed examples of extreme cinema ever produced. 14. Cannibal Holocaust, 1980. Ruggero Deodato's Cannibal Holocaust blurred fiction and realism so convincingly that the director was arrested and forced to prove actors were alive. The found footage style convinced audiences they were witnessing real events. Controversy overshadowed its thematic intentions for decades. Today, scholars analyze it as both groundbreaking and deeply problematic cinema. 15. Salo, or the 120 Days of Sodom, 1975. Pier Paolo Pasolini's final film remains one of the most disturbing artistic statements ever made. Set during fascist Italy, the film portrays power, control, and dehumanization through deliberately uncomfortable imagery. Pasolini intended the film as political allegory criticizing authoritarian systems and consumer culture. Many countries banned it immediately upon release. Audiences struggled to separate symbolism from shock value. The director's tragic death shortly before release added mystery and myth around the film. Critics later reassessed it as a philosophical work about absolute power rather than exploitation. Even today, it challenges viewers to question the limits of art itself. Outrage. These films prove that cinema isn't always meant to comfort audiences. Sometimes it exists to confront, disturb, and force conversations society would rather avoid. Whether viewed as artistic masterpieces or controversial excesses, each of these movies changed how filmmakers approach taboo subjects and audience tolerance. If you enjoyed this deep dive into cinema's darkest corners, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more untold stories from film history.